Today I'm going to be talking to you about discipline without punishment. And most people, in my experience of presenting this information over several years, when most people hear discipline without punishment to mean no discipline, because as a whole society we have discipline and punishment have been inseparable. They've been just enmeshed, the same thing. And so when you tell somebody that you don't use punishments, you can kind of expect that they're going to hear that you don't use discipline, that you don't ever set any limits, and you don't guide your child, and you never say to them that that's not okay to do that, or I don't like that, or please don't do that, or not this way, we go this way, or I know I can hear you really disappointed, but it does have to happen, or this is what's heard is that you're a parent who just goes, okay, and just says yes to everything, and that your house and your child is a complete state of chaos. So just clarifying that discipline without punishment is it's just that it's a different way of disciplining, and not only is it not necessary to use punishments, but I'm hoping that by the end of this that you're going to see that not just not necessary once you know what the tools are, which is what you're here to learn, but that it's counterproductive, and that the use of guiding, controlling children with the tools of using punishments of all kinds, not just smacking or hitting or time out, but including enforced consequences, anything that the child basically would experience as a punishment, with withdrawal of privileges, ignoring a child. So all of those, that all goes in the category of punishments, and all of those methods are, as I say, not only not necessary, but that they're counterproductive, and the predominant cause of most of the strife and conflict that's happening in most families most of the time. So we're going to just flip the whole traditional parenting model on its head, and not just say there's a different way to do it, but if you truly want the relationships in your family to be based on trust and cooperation that is willing cooperation, that's willing participation, that's that sense of fostering the team spirit in the family, then it's really important to foster a culture in the family that is truly and utterly based on love and trust, and keeping the channels of communication open, and helping everybody in the family stay as in balance as possible. And I'm going to talk about some of the tools, and one of the really important factors if you're not using punishments and you're moving over towards peaceful parenting is learning how to manage the stress levels in the family, which predominantly comes down to managing whose stress levels? Yeah, because we can do a lot of, you need to calm down, can't you see that you're overreacting here? You can do a certain amount of that, but does that help a child calm down? How does that feel for the child? What sort of words come to mind? More stressful, yeah. Confusing, exactly. Frustrating, yes. And so we can do a lot of, yes, I am listening, I am being reasonable, I am not shouting. I am not shouting, I am being very reasonable, yes. So we can do a lot of that, can't we? It's really easy to do that. And we're actually convincing ourselves that come on, you know, and there's this thing that happens at the back of our brain, which you may or may not recognize, and I don't know if anybody else experiences this, but if you grew up in the family I grew up in, you would know that I am being so nice. So nice. You should be so glad that I am this nice. But for your little child who's hearing the, yes, I am listening and I am being reasonable, it still feels like, what? How does it feel? Even as you're listening to me kind of mimic it out, how does it feel? Forceful. Yeah. What else?
Enforced.
Forced.
Like
yeah.
Brushing your teeth and saying,
yeah. Yeah. And that's actually what's happening. That the whole body gets really, really tight and really, really stressed. And we now have this huge body of research, which we've never had before in human history, which is really, really exciting, of what actually happens in the relationship between the parent and the child, and how different styles of parenting and different ways of communicating with the child are responding to the child's upsets, are responding to the child's problems or challenges, how it actually affects the child. And both from the perspective of the people who've been studying the relationship between the parent and child as they play and they talk, and also and we now have what's called attachment science, which is 40, 50 years of research, which kind of takes the guesswork out of it and basically boils down to that we now know absolutely unequivocally that what fosters the most healthy culture in the family is when children experience overall warm, consistent, positive responsiveness. So when overall the parent is responding positively and warmly to the child's needs. Doesn't mean that you don't get stressed, it doesn't mean that you don't have your really bad days, but that overall that your child can rely that you are responsive to their feelings and to their needs. So, and we have that, and we also have all of the information from the whole world of neuroscience and what happens in the brain. So going back to my little scenario of when we're saying, I am listening, I am being very reasonable, I'm not shouting. And what's happening in our brain is, and what's happening in the child's brain is a mirroring of each other. And we have you heard that term, mirror neurons? Which actually just somebody here was talking about before with great excitement, and which just shows us that our state in our brain basically affects our child, and that if our child is upset and we want them to calm down, but we want them to be more reasonable and to listen to us and to not flip out, but we're really, really stressed, they can't. It's a bit like holding them tight and saying, go outside and play. Honestly, it's as logical as that. When we are really, really stressed and in that everything's really tight, and we're telling our children to be reasonable with each other, or we're trying to settle our baby or our older child to sleep at night, or our 12-year-old is getting really upset about something and seems to be really, really overreacting, and we're trying to, in each of these situations, we're trying to help our child get back to a more calm and settled state, which is a lot of what we need to do. That's a lot of the skill of parenting, isn't it? Is helping our children get back to a state where they can listen, they can think, they can be more reasonable, they can relax enough to let us explain what's going on, or that they can eat their food, or that they can, sleep. And for them, first to be able to help them achieve that, we have to change our own state and our own brain and our own body. And that's what peaceful parenting relies on more than anything else, relies on us developing the ability to notice that we're actually really stressed and that our stress is having an effect on our child, that the child's behaviour is not ever separate from the relationship between us and them, that it's always within the context how your child is acting at 8 months or at 12 or at age 5, at age 18, when you're interacting with each other, how your child is acting and speaking can only be fully understood and responded to more constructively when it is seen within the context of the relationship between you and them.